Are you ready to uplevel your sales game? Well, here is a gift for you. It is the Mastering the Sales Conversation mini training. This training gives you my proven step-by-step approach to sales so that you can go from that overwhelmed and intimidated approach that you have to sales to feeling confident and leading a conversation so that you easily guide somebody to hiring you. You can get it right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/mastering. This is my gift to you. Go grab it now.
Do sales conversations make you feel awkward or pushy? It's time to ditch the outdated salesy strategies. Your guide, Nikki Roush, will show you how to combine kindness with selling skills to meet your prospects where they are, and in the process, how to uplevel your influence and income. Learn how to earn business easily and effortlessly. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Roush. Today's episode is part of the Mastering Excellence series. This is where I interview experts who have achieved a high level of success in their life or business in one particular area. And we kind of dig into what's the structure behind that? How did they achieve those results? And then by them sharing that structure, you can take it, implement it into your own business so that you can achieve exceptional results in some area of your life or business. And I am very excited today to welcome back to the show. Our guest is Liz Hartke. Now, if you haven't heard her previous episode, I'm going to encourage you to go back and listen to it because on there we're talking about Luminary Leadership. And let me just go through Liz's bio because she is a rock star, superstar, and one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. So for over a dozen years, Liz has served as a business and leadership advisor to thousands of ambitious entrepreneurs internationally, including greats like John C. Maxwell, helping them exponentially grow in business while unlocking their God-given potential. Liz is the award-winning founder and CEO of the Luminary Leadership Company and is proud to work alongside her incredible team and husband while also homeschooling their 4 kids from their farm property. Through her competitive masterminds, mentorship, and online programs, Liz has broken the mold on what it looks like to be truly successful in business while honoring the areas of life that matter most. Her expertise and unconventional wisdom have been featured in media outlets including Forbes, Fast Company, Entrepreneur. She's personally mentored top industry leaders and has spoken on stages throughout the world. After losing their 5th baby at 17 weeks pregnant, and experiencing a miraculous event after nearly losing her life herself, Liz is fiercely passionate about getting ambitious entrepreneurs out of the trap of busy and into visionary leadership, where they can access the intentional, meaningful, and freedom-filled lives they crave. Today, we're going to be talking about how to create a profitable visionary schedule. She is the guru on this. Liz, welcome to the show, friend.
Yeesh. I don't know. I can't listen to you read that. That's crazy town.
You're amazing.
I love working alongside you, Nikki. And I just was saying this yesterday when you were on my podcast, how every time I hear you speak, now you're the one that's trained me up in sales and all things sales, and have made me a more confident person in that category, which is like the key to all things business, is to be able to sell. But every time I hear you speak, I'm learning another layer to how I can improve and how I can bring your wisdom into my life and into my business. So I'm super grateful for you. More so, I'm grateful for our friendship. But I'm really excited to be with you.
Thank you. And I'm super excited to dive into this topic. Now, for people who maybe don't know, you and I have quite a history together. We met actually when I was on one of your earlier podcasts, which was the Scaling Up podcast. And there was just something, I felt like there was just something in the water that day between you and me. It was like, I think we're supposed to know each other. And I feel that way about people often, but I don't know that people often feel that way about me, but I felt like you did too. And we started doing some like work together. I was helping you with your business. You were helping me with mine. And our friendship has just blossomed over the years. And then the last 3 years, I have been in your incubator program as a part of the Luminary Leadership. I have learned so much from you I think when I think of leadership and how to do leadership in a really authentic, genuine, imperfect yet perfect way, you are the shining example. Um, and I just am so inspired and in awe, and honestly, probably couldn't love anybody more than I love and adore you. You have been a game changer for me as a person to grow personally and professionally. And I'm just so honored to get to have some more time with you today.
Yeah, I'll take it anytime I can get it, Nikki. And it's so cool that everything you just said just is so mutual. So that's such a gift.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to dig in because I feel like you have really kind of broken the mold around this, but you also have really created structure around this too. This idea of creating a profitable visionary schedule. I'm constantly a work in progress when it comes to my schedule. I feel like you do it to the way it should be done, and I'm doing it to the way that I'm aspiring to get to where you are. So if I was to stand in for you for a day, this is always my first question, and thinking about wanting to create a profitable visionary schedule, what do I have to think about and what do I have to do in order for that to start to come to fruition?
Yeah, that's the right question to ask, because anytime that you're stepping into something that's uncomfortable or new, the question I ask is, who does that? Who does that well, right? Like, who is someone, either a different version of me in the future who's mastered this, or someone I admire or look at and say, wow, like I see this person, I admire them in all categories of their life. Like, I appreciate how they do what they do. And then I want to ask the question, what are they doing? So who comes before do always? Like, who do I need to be? I just had this conversation earlier today with some of my clients, and we were talking about the idea of, we were setting some goals for the summer specifically, because summer should be a different season in business. And I said, the most important thing that you can do in this process, you're going to set goals, right? We all do this. We set goals. We're super excited about it. But we set them as the same person we were the last time we set goals, and those goals fell through. So why will it be different this time? The same reason that setting a New Year's resolution is kind of ridiculous, because almost no one lives out their New Year's resolution. And why is that? Well, it's because we're setting it as the same person we were before. We're focusing on the do before the who. So the conversation I was having earlier today was essentially, it really is about the identity that you have to take on before we determine what you're tactically doing, let's say with your time, if we're talking about a schedule specifically. So when someone quits smoking and they've smoked for years and it's a true addiction for them, and there are two people, right? One, they both quit smoking on the same day. They both are equally as inspired by the idea of no longer smoking or improving their health or getting back their lung health or whatever. So similar scenarios. And they each go to a party one evening and they're asked the same question: would you like a cigarette? And the first person says, no, thanks. I'm not going to have a cigarette today. But the second person says, no, I'm not a smoker. The first person has set themselves up for a way more difficult path of doing what they said they want to accomplish. They don't want to smoke anymore, but now they've encountered a scenario where that opportunity to smoke is presented to them and they have to make a decision. And making decisions drain our energy, right? So anytime instead we can take on an identity where that decision is made for us, then we just know what to do. So that second person, when they were offered a cigarette, instead of saying, no, I'm not, I'm quitting smoking, I'm not going to have a cigarette, they said, I'm not a smoker. And they're essentially saying, I don't identify as a person who would ever say yes to taking a cigarette. So for them, there was no decision to be made. It was so easy for them. I mean, it's a challenge because you're fighting an addiction, but mentally it's a lot easier to embrace that identity. So as we set goals, as we think, okay, I want to have a profitable schedule. I want to have a schedule that I love. I want to have a schedule with more margin in it. I want time to be present with my kids. I want to really laser in on the right things in my business. Instead of just going and like carbon copying someone else's schedule that has, achieved a lot of the things that you want to live out, you first have to say, like, who is that person and how do I embrace that identity? so that I don't set this awesome schedule, but then like 2 weeks in, I don't live by it anymore. And the reason I like starting with the schedule is because, show me your schedule and I'll show you your trajectory. Like it's the easiest thing that we can leverage as evidence as to whether or not we're going to achieve the things we say we want to achieve. So I break down a schedule into 7 parts. I want to touch on a couple of those 7 parts today of having what I call a spacious, profitable, visionary CEO schedule. Like when you are in that visionary CEO seat, that's the identity you want to embrace. So many of us as small business owners, we subconsciously embrace the identity of busy entrepreneur. Have you ever met a small business owner that's like a true all in, this is what they do, that's not like, I'm so busy, or I'm so at max capacity, or I'm on the brink of burnout? It's like, that's just our identity. That's who we are. We just have kind of accepted that that's life as an entrepreneur. My argument, because I've personally been on both sides of the fence and more so have studied people who've done it even way better than me, is it's not true. And in fact, that access point into the next level of success, peace, harmony, profitability, freedom, whatever the thing is, or all of the things, is not going to be accessed as a busy entrepreneur just trying to get more done. So the profitable schedule, when we identify that mindset, like, okay, who is the identity? The identity is a visionary CEO. I'm no longer going to wear busy as a badge of honor. In fact, the path to more profitability, to more prosperity, to more peace and purpose in my career and like satisfaction in my days is actually one of less, not more, but it's just getting laser focused on the right less. So it's no longer embracing the to-do list. It's not packing as much as you possibly can into every corner of your day. It's not thinking that the only way to get ahead is just to get more done, and then eventually it'll all compound and you'll get to the level you want. It's letting go of that identity and saying, okay, as a visionary CEO, I actually function differently. And the way that I know I'm functioning differently is by opening my calendar and seeing how I honor that new identity.
I love this. Okay. So just for the audience and also for myself, because I've just taken like 2 pages of notes. Like ask yourself, who does this well? The who comes before the do. I love that so much. And that it really is about embracing the identity of being the visionary CEO and not the busy entrepreneur, and right. The less is more, and making that less really count. Okay. So, I know you said 7 parts and you're willing to share like a few of them just for the sake of time. And also, so where do we want to go first? Like what would be that first step, or that first piece that you need to be thinking about with this schedule of this less is more?
So the first CEO block that is critical that a lot of us skip. All right. So we feel like this is not to belittle the reality of being a business owner. And a lot of the people I work with, they're business owners, they're spouses, they're involved in their communities, they have kids, they've got families. Like there are a lot of obligations. We don't just wear one hat and sit at our desk, like, 10 hours a day chipping away. Like there's a lot more to us. But the problem is, because we feel that pressure and there is always so much to get done in order to even just maintain, let alone get ahead, we jump into our day and we hear all the time, massive action, massive action, massive action. And there is a time and a place for massive action, but it's not at the start of your day, not the first thing you do. So my habits for years, and I paid dearly for this in the long run, both from a health perspective, like literally I was all gas, no brakes. So I would wake up in the morning really early and I'd immediately check in with my team, check my email, check in on social media, go to my website, like do all the things. And then I'd jump into my tasks. I'd be in Slack with my team. I'd be in Asana looking at my project boards. I would be looking at my to-do list, making a running to-do list, and look at my day and be like, okay, this is the amount of time I have allotted to get all this stuff done. And it would be totally counterintuitive to me to dedicate any of my precious limited time to anything but action, because it's like, well, I can visibly see, talk about evidence. I can see tangibly what needs to get done, and I can see how many hours I have to do it. So I can't give that time to anything but moving that ball forward. And that's how it felt. That is the guaranteed one-way ticket into perpetual busy entrepreneurship. You cannot escape that standard of just go, 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 working from a to-do list, getting as much as I can done, being as productive as I possibly can, and expect to elevate into a level of success or prosperity or just even freedom. Like when I say success, you have to define it, right? Like I think of success as the whole person. I'm not just talking money. I'm talking like, how much do I enjoy what I do? Like, do I feel like I'm doing what God's put me on this earth to do? Am I leveraging the gifts that I have? Am I setting an example for my kids that I'd be proud of? Do I have the space and the margin to be present with those kids and raise them well? And I see the ripple effect in who they're becoming. Do I have a strong marriage that I'm proud of? Like that's success to me.
Yeah.
I also love profitability and the ability to have wealth so that I can pour into other people the way that I want to. So that is an element of success. So my strategy now is implementing the first CEO block, which is the intentional CEO block. And for me, this usually falls between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. My husband gets up at 4 a.m. He's crazy. I cannot join the 4 a.m. club at this point. It's just not in the cards for me right now. But I can join the 5 a.m. club because my intentional CEO block is the block of time that I dedicate to intentionally stepping into my day as the leader that I'm seeking to become. Like this is where I'm getting my mind right, I'm getting my body right, I'm preparing, like connecting to my intuition, I'm connecting to God for me, and I'm really understanding the who, right? Like this is the who. This is where you make space for the things that are going to arm you for the day ahead. Because yes, you will be busy. Yes, you will have decisions you have to make. Yes, you will have challenges you face. There will be mistakes. There will be frustration. There will be failures. So how are you preparing yourself to be the steady leader that you need to be in order to handle that well? And this block should be long enough to just ease into the day with prayer, reading, journaling. Now I'm very specific in my prayer, in what I journal, in what I read. Like I'm not just saying pick up any book or listen to any audiobook or say any quick prayer or just scribble in a journal. This is like, it's an intentional CEO block. So it's something that I get laser focused on. I follow very specific prompts and journal, just like an extraction process so that my mind is actually being laser focused in on where I'm going that day. And I also keep enough space in that time block to make sure that my body and my family get the best of me. So that time, like I start my day in the sauna. So I do 30 minutes in the sauna and that's when I do my prayer. And I like habit stacking. I like when I can kill multiple birds with one stone because I've got a lot of kids. So the more efficient I can be, the better. And I hate wasted time. So in the sauna, I do 30 straight minutes of really focused prayer. And I'm asking God to ready me. I'm like, I don't know what this day has. We've got these stressors this week and I feel like I can't handle it. And I'm going to need the grace and the patience and the strength to get through this week. So make me aware of who I need to be in order to carry this cross into this week, like whatever it is for me. I specifically build that block knowing that I have 4 little kids. So it's not mommy time. Like for any of the moms listening that are like, you take 3 hours to yourself. I'm like, hell no, I don't. Like aside from the sauna, I figure out how to make that intentional CEO block, like a family block too, right? Like if I'm journaling, I might have a kid sitting next to me, like color in their coloring book, right? Or if I am working out or exercising or going for a walk in the morning, I am taking a kid in a stroller. Like I'm not getting to do this stuff on my own. So I just want to like make abundantly clear, because I know people are picturing, the single 32-year-old dude who's sitting in his ice bath, like on his own with no other obligations. I'm not talking about that. I'm a mother of 4 kids. This is not always pretty, but it's very intentional and it's very focused, and it's every day because I know that I'm going to be thrown curveballs, whether it's kid related, business related, whatever it might be. And I want to be steady and ready. So some of that time is specifically like my 7 to 8 block is just straight up family. And that helps me because then I know that I had that time intentionally focused on my family so that when I shift gears into work related focus, I'm not feeling like I was just rushing, getting ready in the morning and then jumping right into work and never having that time. Like that's just what's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that intentional CEO block says, no, don't pick up your phone. No, don't react to anything. The opposite of reaction to me is intentionality. So it's an opportunity to say, I'm not doing anything that is reactionary. So I take it a step further. My first few blocks of the day are phone free. So my phone goes on airplane mode and I leave it in a separate room when I go to bed. I do not go get that phone again or take it off airplane mode until noon. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm kind of an extreme person, but that's what works for me. Now, I would suggest it at least is not available to you until your intentional CEO block is done, because that means that you didn't see anything in Slack that stressed you out. You didn't see something on social media that sparked an idea of something you have to go do before you forget. You didn't see something in your project management system that created a stress in your body that's like, oh my gosh, that's what I have on my plate today. Like, how am I going to get through it? So you're not allowing any stimulus to come into your life that is going to make you think or feel something outside of you being intentional and deciding how you're going to think and feel going into your day. So that's block number 1.
Love it. Okay.
And I highly advise everybody to make it, to create it in a way that works for you. Like everyone's in different seasons of life. Some people can have the time totally to themselves. Some people are like, I can't give the 3 hours. Maybe it can be 2, maybe it can be 1, but it's about the intentionality more than it is about the amount of time.
The phone free thing is like, oh my gosh, I feel like my heart starts to go like, oh, really? I love that. I love it. And I think you did a podcast not too long ago about this, right? Of like, that you're getting really good about releasing that phone addiction, right? Of like, I feel like I'm still a work in progress on that one.
It's very hard at first.
It is hard. But like hard.
3 days in, you're like, I never want to touch my phone again. And what happens to me a lot of the time is I do till noon. So I used to do till 8 when I'd finish my intentional block. And then I was like, you know what? I'm about to go into another really specific block of time. Let me stretch it till 10. And then I was like, well, if I'm going till 10 and I'm not really interacting with people until about noon, because I'll talk a little bit about how I don't do meetings before noon. Then I was like, well, then I may as well do till noon. And then anything prior to noon is just inward focus. Like it's the stuff that makes me come alive, that I'm intended to be doing, that moves the needle. And I have no distraction or obligation to react to anybody else. And I'm a hothead. Like I am a Italian through and through, that like when I see something that ticks me off or stresses me out, like instant fire throughout my whole body. Like you can see smoke coming out of my ears. So I know sometimes I do these things, Nikki, just because I'm like, I'm not disciplined enough to have any wiggle room. Like I talked about in the beginning, like to have to make a decision is harder for me than to just no, I don't do that. And then I just don't do it. Like I'm the same way when I do a meal plan. If someone says like, oh, I portion control, I'm like, good on you, but there's 0% chance that I could do that, because if I can have 1 cookie, I'm going to have 15 and there's no in between. So you have to tell me, no, Liz, you can't eat cookies. And I'll be like, okay, I won't even sniff the cookie because you told me I can't have it. And I'm going to just follow that like hard line. And I just do better with that. So every personality is really different too.
Yeah.
That's just what works for me. You might be someone who can keep their phone in the drawer next to them in the desk and not open it. Well, I open the drawer 50 times because the phone's within reach. But if it's in my closet, I'm lazy enough that I'm not going to get up and walk across the house and take it off airplane mode, and I can stay in that disciplined state.
Do you know how to recognize an act on a buying signal? I have a gift that is going to teach you these 17 buying signals so that you're ready when you get them to take action and move somebody to the next part of the sales conversation. You can get this right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/Maven. Go grab it now. I love this idea of, being able to like really put your phone away and not feel like you got to touch it constantly. Okay.
Yeah.
So where do you want to go next? We talked about the visionary block, which I think is absolutely fantastic, needed. Again, I feel like I'm getting better about this piece. There's still some work to do there, but getting better about thinking from this visionary place. So what's next?
So I want to talk about the sweet spot block because
Okay.
this is probably my favorite block. And it's the one we don't work within. And it's probably one of the biggest differentiators from those who just absolutely take off in growth and possibility and joy and freedom and like all the good stuff. And those who just kind of like keep on trucking and maintaining and feel the stress and the pressure and the busyness and all that. The sweet spot block is where we shine. So it is the block of time that is dedicated to staying fully in your sweet spot. So that's your zone of genius. It's doing the work that makes you come alive and conveniently that also moves the needle in your business. And this should be both your favorite block of the day because you're living in your innate gifts and the block of the day that pushes forward your life's work. So let me break it down a little bit further. We tend to live less than 5% of our time. And I'm getting this statistic from auditing hundreds of business owners that I've done this process with. Less than 5% of our time in our sweet spot. So that means on average, 95% of our time is spent in tasks and actions and management and things that do not light us up, that do not show off and shine a light on our innate gifts, and that are likely not even like we're competent at those things because we're small business owners, we're jack of all trades, we wear a lot of hats, all of that. But it's definitely not like, oh, when Nikki does this though, like all bets are off because everything just comes alive, right? So we spend less than 5% of our time. And usually that's the sign that a business has found some success. Because when you are growing your business and you start to get some wins and you get traction, and now it's at a level where you do have stuff to manage. You have team members, you have a P&L to manage, you have offers that are launching, you have clients you have to fulfill on, you have events that you're running, like you have obligations, you have tasks that do have to get done because that's just the nature of running a small business. But it takes us more and more out of our sweet spot where we're managing people, we're managing things, we're putting out fires, we're just keeping things going instead of like helping things grow. So that sweet spot block says, no, you are going to dedicate a good chunk of time. Now mine is about 4 hours every day. I worked my way up to 4.
Okay.
But it should be probably more than an hour, ideally minimally 2, because we're kind of like freight trains, right? Like we're slow to get started on things, but then once we're going, we're like chugging along, especially when we get in our sweet spot, because then we get in a state of flow where we could do this for 10 hours and lift our head up and realize, oh my gosh, where did the day go? Because I just loved what I was doing. So the problem with it only being an hour or being squished between 2 other very different types of blocks is it takes a little time to get in your groove. So for me, my sweet spot is definitely writing. So when I'm creating content from a writing perspective and speaking. Now, those aren't things that you just like, I don't sit down to write and boom, the first second I'm sitting down, I'm just writing all this stuff. I have to like sit down, get comfortable, get creative, start thinking about what I'm going to write, get my stuff in order. So if I give myself an hour, I'm 30 minutes in before I start, and then I'm already shifting gears. So my sweet spot, I like 4 hours because the stuff that is my sweet spot is creative stuff that does require more time. Now, the crazy thing is, in the beginning, my hesitation of having this block of time at all, let alone for that long, was that, but look at all the other stuff that has to get done.
Mhm.
And I finally started to adopt and realize through help from, mentors and people in my life, no, you can't afford not to do this, because the person that you say you're becoming, they don't do all the things. They
Yeah.
do what they're great at. Like, they do more of what makes them come alive and what they're gifted in. And that creates a positive ripple effect that you just can't access by just like grinding your way there, doing all the things. So as soon as I started to do this, I was thinking, oh, I'll have to go into a season where I have less profit or less coming in because I'm taking myself out of all the other things that, quote, have to be done. And I'm being frivolous, like writing and speaking and doing these things. And instantly it was like that theory of you just be so good they can't ignore you. Like, when you are honing in on literally what you were put on this earth to do, like, you cannot be ignored. So doors open, momentum happens, and you are just in a space mentally where you're so crystal clear on what you're intended to be doing, what you're here to do. And it's just magnetic, and you want to do more of it. So that sweet spot block is super important. My recommendation for it is have it in the first half of the day. Now, I'll give a caveat to that. We've talked before, Nikki, about what's that book that I reference where you have like your energy zones? I always forget the name.
I always forget the name too. And I tell
have
people
it right
all the time about it.
at your best. I said it's right
Okay,
back
at your
there.
best. Yes. It's fantastic because it talks about that there are certain times of the day
Yes.
where you really are like it's it's green, yellow, red, and
Yep.
is there another one? Green, yellow,
No,
red?
just those three.
Okay, those three. And so there are certain things you want to be doing in your green zone that you really shouldn't do in the yellow zone of your day. So knowing like what's your flow. Like, I know for me, like 9 to 2 is really kind of my like my brain is going. I am like on fire during that time. And yeah, not that I can't do stuff before or after, but that's kind of my like sweet kind of time to be really on fire. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to take that into account. So most people, their green zone time where they're the most energized mentally, physically, everything is earlier in the day. Now, not everybody's like, I'm not a morning person. So my sweet spot block is not happening before 8 a.m. I can do things like I have my intentional block during that time, but it's not things where I'm like outputting content or I have to like think really hard because it takes me a while to wake up. So but my sweet spot starts like right after that block. And so I don't want to use that time for like menial tasks that I can do when I'm tired in the afternoon, because it's a lot harder to do the creative stuff when you're tired or you're mentally drained. So that's one reason why you usually want to put it in the first block of the day. The second reason is because if you dedicate however many hours, 2 to 4 hours every day to doing what you are meant to do that is going to move the needle in your business and make you come alive so you love it, which we all know we feed off our own energy. So when we love something, we want to do more of it. We're excited, we're inspired, which then ripples into all the other things we do and how we lead our team and our clients and who we attract, all that stuff. Then you know that every single day you're kicking butt and taking names for the first half of the day. So you don't ever get it. Do you ever have a day where you're like, I just did so much stuff. Like, I plowed through the craziest to-do list and I feel like I got nothing done because it's all just crap. It's like, I answered 50 emails and I responded to Slack messages and I fixed that issue in Kajabi that was like glitching for my client. And then I answered some questions and I put up some social media posts and stories. And I'm like, what do I have to show for my life? Versus I spend 4 straight hours just absolutely laser focused on something that's going to be so prolific in my business. And then maybe I spend an hour or 2 on some of the other stuff. I know that like every day is going to push the needle for, like, it's just going to make such a huge impact. That alone would change those 2 blocks alone would change people's businesses and their lives. Like, your quality of life changes when you do that because you're no longer just like this middle manager, just, you escaped the 9 to 5 to what? Create a 9 to 5 scenario in your own business, but now you don't get paid vacation or you don't get to clock out mentally on the weekends. That's great.
Right.
So this gives you the opportunity to say, no, I'm actually doing what I love again.
Yeah.
And the you'll bear fruit from that, just from those 2 things alone.
Okay. So I have a question about the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Because when I think about my sweet spot, there's a part of me that's like, I don't know. I'm not sure about this one yet. So in case anybody else has this question, I'm going to ask. It might just be me. Like I know that my sweet spot really is it's where I'm teaching. Like that is
I
my
was going to
sweetest
say
spot.
that for you
Like
too.
I
Yeah.
love that so much and it lights me up in a way that nothing else does. So that means there has to be an audience and there have to be questions. Like I can teach concepts. Like I love to teach, but what I really love is to hear the question and get to answer that.
Yep.
And I'm like, how would I do that for 2 to 4 hours every single day? Like 5 days a week? Like what?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to somebody like me that's sitting here going like, I don't even know how to do that?
So
Like that many hours.
sometimes what's in your sweet spot is prepping you for the ultimate sweet spot too. So here's an example.
Okay.
Maybe part of your sweet spot block is pitching yourself to be in more scenarios where you get to teach in a really special way.
Mm,
Now, all of it isn't that because that's not your favorite thing, but
right.
it's teeing up your sweet spot. And then maybe the remaining hours are prepping your talks, like prepping the content that you would put out there when people ask you a question. You're like, oh, this is the framework I reference. So maybe it's some of that creation. And then ultimately the goal would be that your sweet spot is like, great, if you can be finding avenues where you can be teaching, whether, and maybe Nikki is a live show that you do, right? Like where you have callers, kind of, we've talked about this, like a radio show kind of format where people are calling in with their questions around sales and you're getting to answer those questions. And yeah, you run it 5 days a week. Like that would blow up. Everybody, conveniently for you, everybody needs sales if they run a business. So there is a deep need there. So I would say ultimately the goal would be, how do we get you into that scenario for every single day where you were living into that, whether it's speaking in other people's forums, but I would more so like to see you in a role where you're running some kind of, like, I'm saying show, but it's pliable, right? We'd figure out what that would be, where you are able to impart that wisdom every day. Because there would be a positive ripple effect from it. So here, let me put this spin on it. The sweet spot is often stuff that we really, really, really want to do, but it feels like a pipe dream.
Yeah.
Because it feels almost a little frivolous to take it on when we have so much other stuff. So my example of that is writing a book. Me sitting down and writing for 4 hours a day does not make me one penny. None. No dollars. But I know that it's kind of that next big leap for me in my business, that once that book is written and published, now we take the leap. And it required me to be in that sweet spot each day, actually driving that forward. So sometimes what's in our sweet spot is the thing that feels almost like, because it's the next level thing. Like what falls in that is not anything that you're probably just chipping away at a little bit each day. It's like, I am finally doing this. Like I'm finally taking, like for me, it's like my identity that I need to, I'm a published author. I haven't published the book yet, but like that's the identity I have to take on. Well, what does a published author do? Well, they write the freaking book. So I'm writing the book. So for you, it's whatever is on your heart and you're like, but that feels too crazy, but you love it, is probably what would fall in that zone.
Okay. I love this. All right. So you've got your visionary block, you've got your sweet spot block. Is there anything else we want to like dig into around this?
Yeah. So there's one other one I want to touch on today that feels like under leveraged, because again, it feels almost like it's just not how we're conditioned to work. And it's the efficient CEO block. Okay. So yes, you are a small business owner. No, you probably haven't hired a team of 50 people who can do all the things so that you can only ever live in your sweet spot.
Yeah.
Me too. Join the club. There are times that I have to check in with my team. There are times where I need to answer emails or get back to people or do things that don't light me up and that don't necessarily create some crazy positive momentum in my business, but they just have to get done. Like bills have to be paid, right? Like team has to be paid, whatever, that kind of stuff. The problem is that we let that weave into the fabric of our day. So it's like, start your day, answer a couple Slack messages, answer a few emails, maybe get into that sweet spot for a little bit, but then go, oh, got to pay team, go do that. Oh, wait, there's an issue with this. Like there's a glitch in our tech. We got to go fix the glitch. Got to put this fire out. Oh, we have a client that's upset with something. We got to go rectify that. And it just kind of like trickles throughout our day. My argument is, yes, that stuff exists, but it should exist in an appropriate way. And we should be incredibly efficient with it. So what I do is I look at that, again, the book concept, At Your Best. They talk about yellow and red zones. And yellow zone is like where you're definitely not at your best, but you're not like, oh, so tired, whatever. I like to save my efficient CEO block for when I'm so tired. Because I'm like, this is the crap I don't want to do. So I am not giving my best energy to the stuff I don't want to do. I'm giving it to like in that block of time where I'm like, I could take it or leave it. I'm so tired, or I'm not mentally stimulated in a good way. And I set a timer. And so all those tasks and all those things that do have to happen. Now, I would argue a lot of them probably don't have to happen, or they at least could be outsourced. They could be eliminated altogether. They could be delegated to someone else. We suck at delegating as entrepreneurs. It could be automated somehow. So saying like, how could we systemize this in a way where I'm not going and writing the same email over and over, but exists in a template and I just click it and save myself time? Or how can it be deferred? Like sometimes we're doing stuff and we're like, can't this happen next quarter so I can focus where my energy should be so we can defer it? So assuming this is stuff that actually has to be on your plate, I want it condensed down. No more than an hour of your day will go to these efficiencies. And I crank music that pumps me up, usually like 90s jock jams or something like that. That's just going to fire me up because I'm tired and I'm like, I don't want to. So it's almost like my reset where I like look forward. I kind of attach a few things to it where it's like things I look forward to. So like that's when I'll make an afternoon smoothie that I enjoy. I'll put the music on. I'll go sit outside. So now I'm like taking a miserable activity and I'm making it pleasant for myself. Like I actually kind of look forward to it. And I'm like, cool, I'm just going to get this crap done. I set a timer. And I go. And when you set a timer, now the task that used to take you 3 times as long took you a fraction of the time because you're like, I have to be efficient. I only have this much time. And I'm not in a mode where I'm like jumping from task to task and losing my focus. And now it shows up all throughout my whole day and it breaks up my creativity, or I see something that upsets me or stresses me out. Now it's like, no, my expectation is I'm dealing with the little crap that is kind of stressful and not pleasant. And I'm in that frame of mind. Like I've armored up for that. So that efficiency block usually for me falls in the afternoon, and it's how I close my loops for the day. So that feels really good because now I've closed loops with my team. I've closed loops for myself, and I've teed up the next day that I can go into that intentional CEO block and into that sweet spot block without a bunch of little tasks hanging around. Now you might be in a different business model where you're like, I can't wait until like 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. to check in with my team. Totally fine. Build in a mini efficiency block for 15 minutes in the earlier part of the day, but set the timer. Don't let yourself just like 3 hours pass and you're like, oh, there goes my sweet spot block because I just let my efficiency block just completely cannibalize it. You have to like be disciplined and stick with it. So you have to do it how it works for you. But I always feel like none of us are brain surgeons, minus the brain surgeons, and no one is like dying on the table needing us in 3 or 4 hours time. So it's usually pretty safe to do that. Like you prep your team. My team knows if I'm in Slack before noon, they're like, get out of here. This is your sweet spot block. Like we need you to be creating the things that we're going to sell. Like don't be in here asking, they just know. Like, so there's nothing and then my clients know because none of our calls are scheduled prior to that time. So like, that's just what they come to expect. So there's not this expectation that I'm going to be on call for people because everything's so urgent. Stop. Sometimes we're complicit in our own chaos and we create the urgency. And then we're like, oh, we have to respond to the urgency. It's like, no, you created the urgency. It's not really that urgent. Learn how to be more efficient and having all those little urgent things exist in a small pocket of time.
Yeah. I love this so much, this efficiency block. This is probably the next piece well, obviously the sweet spot piece for me has to come, but this is one of those pieces that I absolutely have to decide this is who I am. I am somebody
Mm.
who does this, right? Like who are you before you do it? So I
Yeah.
love this. Okay. So many good little nuggets. And I know there's more, right? There's 7 blocks. We're not going to go through all 7,
Yeah.
but I think these main 3 that you gave are so impactful and things that people can go and actually work into your schedule. And I know that in a training that I was in with you recently, where I think at times you were like, okay, so when can you work this in? And I'm looking at my schedule going like August,
Right.
September, because for me, things book out so far, but that it can be done. It's just a matter of deciding this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be, and this is what I'll do as a result. So I love that
Yep.
so much.
Yeah, sometimes it's going to be a delayed effect. Like not all of us can be like, okay, starting tomorrow, I'm going to implement all 7 blocks and everything gets wiped from my calendar. But you can talk to your team and say, hey, any creative ways you can think of that we can start to implement this sooner? Like, because I book out ahead too. So, some ways you can do that is saying like, all right, well, I'm not going to take meetings before noon, but I have some meetings scheduled before noon. Can you go to those meetings and be like, hey, are you available afternoon? The answer might be no, and that's okay. And you stick with that obligation, but you can maybe can come to life a little sooner than just like, oh, I have to wait until some point in my calendar months from now when I don't have anything scheduled. You can just start to transition things into this way of operating.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so I always like to end like asking the questions a little bit more about you and how people can get in touch with you and all that good stuff. But one of the questions that I would love, and you probably answered this for us before, so let me think if I could change this a little bit. What's something new in your life that really brings you joy?
That's a great question. Okay, well, something new for me has been just my depth of faith lately and trust. So I've really prioritized just time to be in prayer and just in stillness, which I've never really done in my life. Like I've always prayed, I've always had a prayer life, I've always had faith, but I've never just like built it around a true relationship with God, and that has been incredibly captivating to me. I've never understood it when people describe it and they're like, I so enjoy it. Like prayer always felt like a chore to me, like an obligation that I had that I was told I had to do as a little kid. And now it's like what I look forward to most in my day, and it exists throughout my day. So before I do so, like as entrepreneurs, we take on so much, or when you have children, you take on so much. And it feels like it's all on our back. And I don't feel like I'm carrying things alone anymore. And I feel like really steady in that. So that is something that I have been genuinely enjoying. Like I go for a walk every single day and I don't bring my phone and I pray the whole time. And my neighbors probably think I'm nuts because I think sometimes I get so into it that I'm like actually like having a conversation and talking out loud. And I'm like, they definitely think I'm crazy. Luckily, sometimes I bring the baby in the stroller. So at least maybe they think I'm talking to the baby. But yeah, so that's probably the thing that's just brought me a lot of joy lately.
I love that. I love that. What is something that people often get wrong about you?
Mm. Do you have 5 hours? Okay, so one thing people definitely get wrong about me is they think that I like always have it together. Like I've gotten that a lot from my clients, and I think that's partially because like people only see, certain elements of your
Mm,
life, but I've really learned to embrace like the messiness of life, and I do not have it all together. Like I really struggle a lot with certain things, like emotionally struggle with things, physically struggle with things. Just like I'll be impatient or, just those kind of things that like I do not have it all together. And I think sometimes people have that expectation of me. And it actually is a detriment because it's like they're not treating me realistically. Like they think somehow I'm magically gonna just, I don't know, live up to this crazy expectation that somehow I've just like reined it in my life. And I'm like, no, you have no freaking clue. Like it's crazy town over here. We were parenting, homeschooling 4 kids, right now we're in the midst of prepping to move cross country. Haven't even started packing our entire house to get ready. Like we've just kind of learned to be like, oh, this is the crazy season of life. Like the next 10 to 20 years for my husband, Michael, and I are going to be nuts. And we kind of are learning to like it. So no, I don't have it all together.
And with that, though, I will say there's so many things I admire about you. I do feel like you let people really know you. And I find that really inspiring. Also, I'm very drawn to that. You invite us into your home. Those of us who are in the incubator, I think I've been in your home multiple times, many, it feels like, and, met the kids and, just been in the environment, and you're really real. Like you're always like, okay, this didn't go the way we had planned it. And here's where we are. And here's how we're gonna, change gears here, or this is what we're gonna do. Or, the baby needs you. And you're like, yeah, the baby needs me. So here I go. Right. Like, I just feel like that piece is really inspiring, because it's like what you see is, I think what you see is what you get with you, and in the most beautiful, perfect way. So
I appreciate that. I'm trying to be better at that. I used to put this pressure on myself. I think maybe because of just who I am and like how I've lived my life, but also because I have a very high standard of how I want to deliver for other people. And I started my business before I had kids. So if I had a meeting, I was never, a second late. I was always early. If I had any kind of commitment to someone else, like I will fall on the sword to live out that commitment in the way that I expect that I should. And then as I started having children, we'd be in, like, Michael would see the stress on me that I would have a meeting with a client like you, who's like super normal and forgiving and like would never be offended by a baby crying in the background. And I would feel like stress. Like we have to somehow make it sound like it's silent in this house. And like, those were the kind of things that I felt pressure around. Or something crazy would happen. Like I'd go, okay, this is nuts. I went into labor with one of my kids and I still took a podcast interview because I had promised I would show up for it. I'm like, I'm not screwing up this person's schedule. I told them I'd be there. Like, I'm not. And Michael's like, you're in labor, you nutbag. Like, it's okay. These people are human. You can say, hey, crazy news. Water broke in labor. Can we reschedule? But I couldn't bear it. I'm like, I have to live up to this standard and these promises for other people. So I've really, like, I still believe in valuing, honoring other people's time and all those things. And I stand by that. But I'm like allowing myself to be more human and asking for grace in scenarios where I will say to someone, if something's crazy going on, like, hey, I've got a kid puking right now. Like, can I'll be there in 15 instead of 5. And everyone's like, yeah, of course.
Right.
No big deal. But I used to put so much pressure. So I'm really trying to just, in giving myself grace and being willing to ask for grace, it makes it easier to just share more of what is true. And anytime we see someone that's willing to share kind of the messy behind the scenes, like, I think it just takes pressure off of us, because I love when I see someone like going through it, because I'm like, oh, thank God. I thought they were perfect. They're not perfect. That's great news. Like, they function like a normal person too. And that gives me permission to just be me and like not stress about it.
And I will say, as somebody who's been a client for years, that you give your clients that permission too, and create really safe space for us to show up and just in our imperfections and, the highs and the lows and so couldn't be a more beautiful opportunity for people to be in a really safe, really beautiful environment where you can truly be yourself and just let it all, like, this is where I'm at. This is how I feel. This is where I'm struggling. So I'm really grateful for that. Okay. Last question is, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you? And what do you have going on right now that people can take part in?
So this concept of creating this profitable, spacious schedule with the CEO blocks, I'm doing a live free workshop that I'm going to break it down in way more detail, and I'll give all 7 of the blocks, but I also am showing people my schedule and showing them how I use it, because I think conceptually it probably makes sense to people, but then oftentimes people are like, but what would go in my CEO block, or what kind of things are in the intentional block? So I break all that down in addition to some other things that help people really discern, like, okay, you say like, you should leverage this to step into what's calling you, but like, how do I even discern what's calling me? You know, all that kind of stuff. So they can register for that free workshop at luminaryleadershipco.com/CEO. So luminaryleadershipco.com/CEO. And then I'm over on Instagram. And if you just come to Liz Hartke, Hartke, and DM me podcast, I'll shoot you over the Luminary Leadership podcast, where you can find Nikki and other leaders. And we get into this kind of really making leadership tangible in your life. Like, how can you take these principles and apply them in a way where you're going to see the results you're seeking?
Yeah, there's so much gold in the podcast. And yeah, for sure, show up, because I have been through, I know what goes in the 7 blocks. I've been through this presentation. It's phenomenal. And it really does challenge you to think about your schedule in a new way. And Liz really does walk her talk. So I highly encourage you to go and check that out. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful to you for a myriad of reasons, but specifically today for showing up and sharing your brilliance with us. And I learned a lot. I took a lot of notes. I've got some new ahas going into my head. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Nikki. You know, I love you, and I'm always happy to collaborate like this with you.
Same. Okay. And for you, the listener, thank you so much for being here. Please reach out to Liz. She's fantastic to follow on social media. She's got really great content. She shares from a very authentic place. And let her know, what was your big takeaway from today's podcast, from spending this time with us. And I'd love to hear from you as well. Have a great rest of your day. Wishing you continued success in all that you're doing. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.
Are you ready to increase your confidence in your sales conversations? I have a gift for you that is going to show you exactly how to do that. It is my Closing the Sale ebook. It's all about leveling up your confidence, giving you language to use, how to seamlessly move somebody through the sales process. And you can get it right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/Maven. Go grab it.